Today, I wanted to talk about just mentalities for success and to build wealth. Because obviously, there are like the technical to dos, there's like the technical track of like what you need to do to get wealthy. And then there are some like philosophical things that kind of underpin and underlie, I guess, the motivation to be successful in the first place. So today, I want to share with you a few things that I learned along my journey that kind of set the pace, set me on this track so that now I kind of have the lifestyle I have. And I'm very, very, very grateful for learning these lessons early. So that's what I wanted to share with you. So today's podcast recording, it's going to go up on DG Recruit podcast. That's where all of my free recordings are. So you can go and listen to this if you want to listen to it on the go. There are 7 tips that I drafted today. Usually when I do podcasts, it's really just this simple. I just write whatever's in my head. I don't have to write a script. I don't have to like create things. It's just in my head. I know exactly what I went through. I'm going to share with you 7 tips about success and wealth that has helped me over the years learn a lot, develop myself, and reach the situation I'm in now, which is a very, very nice situation. So for those of you who know, obviously, my background, I started off as a babysitter's daughter. That's my origin story. Literally came to America. Parents were very poor graduate students. At the time in the 90s, nobody in China had money. There's no such thing as crazy rich Asians. And when we landed in America, my parents became babysitters. So I grew up in a wealthy person's house. I grew up being the daughter of the help and really being able to see, wow, this is how all of my classmates lived. I lived in the same neighborhood that JF Kennedy grew up in, which is Brookline, Massachusetts. It's a very expensive neighborhood. And of course, we couldn't have lived there unless we were working for some rich people. So I'm blessed. And I look at it like that because I'm very grateful that I grew up in a very safe and good environment because my parents took their put their pride aside and decided they were okay being babysitters after being teachers and professors in China. They were cool downgrading their life to whatever they had to do to survive. So that's kind of the context of how I grew up, was the babysitter's daughter. And then obviously my parents started, being very entrepreneurial, working very hard. And the immigrant lifestyle, if you have friends who are immigrants, if you yourself come from similar background, you know how hard that grind is, that real challenging grind when you don't have a green card, when you don't have, legal status every single day, you're worried, you're frightened about your future. You have to constantly take less than you're worth, eat dirt. People treat you like dirt because your English is not good. All these things I witnessed happen to my parents at a young age. So what I realized very early on and what my parents taught me was that if you want success, if you want out of your existing setup wherever you are, you have to be prepared to do what others don't want to do. So that's like number 1. That's the number 1 tip. Is like, if you want a different outcome, you have to do what other people aren't going to do. Otherwise, you'll have the same outcome. If you want to live an average life, you can do the exact same thing everybody else is doing. So that's why I don't like news articles about macroeconomic data, because that stuff is so basic. It's for the average person. Doesn't apply to me. So like the average information, for instance, could be, oh, millennials are all going to not have houses. I have had multiple homes since my 20s. I don't listen to conventional information because it has nothing to do with me. Like that is the advice for the populace. That's how I see it, right? Like similarly, as it relates to jobs, you should get a stable job. You should get a really good, stable job. That doesn't sound like riches to me. That sounds very basic, sounds very average. I don't want that. I don't want an average outcome. So I'm not going to do that. So that's why in my early 20s, I got into sales because I'm like, I don't want a basic job. I don't want a $60,000 job. That to me does not sound great. 60,000 base. Who the hell cares? Like what is that going to buy me after taxes? Right. So I think the first step is like, I don't want to be average. Like the goal is not to be average. Why would I follow the average path? That doesn't make sense. Of course, you're going to end up in a very average place if you're going to do the average thing. So I got into sales, got into recruitment. Agency recruitment, as many of you know, is a sales job. And if you didn't know it, now you know. It's a sales job. It's a hardcore sales job. And I started off with 0 clients. So I had to do things to get clients. And that actually is part of my course now. Agencyrecruitmentacademy.com is where you can take it. I walk you through exactly how I built my $1 million plus desk, right, over the years. And it takes a lot of work and effort. You have to do what others are not willing to do. This is why so many people are not seeing success in their sales career. It's because they're just doing what everyone else is doing. They are not doing anything that other people are unwilling to do. Meeting clients, traveling long distances, working really long hours, they're not willing to do it. So your results can only be as such. That is just what you're going to get. Unfortunately, if you're not going to do more than the average person, you're not going to get more than the average person. Life has a very fair way of dishing out your returns. So that's number 1. Be prepared to do what others don't want to do. Same thing in college. In college, does anyone want to work 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 jobs? Does anybody want to not have a social life and just work all the time? I chose to work a lot because I did not want to graduate with a ton of student debt. So this is another thing. People are like, millennials are all broke because they have lots of student debt. Yeah, a lot of people chose to forego working during schooling, either because they couldn't handle it or because they didn't prioritize it. For me, like money, I prioritized it. I did not prioritize my studies. So you just have a different strategy. Everybody has a different strategy. You're in full control, and there's pros and cons to each strategy. So like as a millennial, I graduated with very little student debt because I was working the whole time. And when I was interviewing for my recruitment job, my manager was like, your grades are like really average. I was like, yeah, it's because I was working the whole time. Like, I'm not big on studying. That's why I'm here for this sales job. Like, I am not an academic. I went to college because I was forced to go to college. I was expected to go to college. My parents made me go to college. That's why I went to college. Do you think I want some office job? Like, do you think that is why I'm here? Like, I'm here to make money. I wish I could have done it earlier, but the cookie has already crumbled. I already finished and got my degree and, had to go through this whole process because that's what middle-class families make you do, right? Middle-class families have fear and they don't know any better. And they're just like, yeah, go to college, get a degree. This would be all end all. So again, that's kind of my experience where it was like, because I chose to do things that my peers did not choose to do, I graduated and I've consistently won like from that strategy. Just like whatever other people are unwilling to do, I will win because if I do it, I will reap the rewards. So other people who are scared of cold calling, they don't want a cold call. That's their loss. I'm over here cold calling like crazy and I'm getting all the wins. I'm getting all these candidates. I'm getting all these clients, right? People don't want to work 7 days a week. I do. I want to work 7 days a week because I want to get successful. Be willing to do what others don't want to do and you will see the result. Number 2, a big life change happened to me when I was 22 years old. I was working at my parents' restaurant. For those of you who don't know this story, I'm going to get a little personal. So in 2009, actually, my mom decided to go to China, risk all of our family's money to go and set up a business, which eventually failed in like a decade. So she was stuck there for like a decade. And there's so many amazing stories from that whole experience. But anyways, so she left and I had to manage our family restaurant because that is what pays the bills. It's what pays the mortgage. It's what pays for everything. And so my cousin was out and about doing grad school. She was in a different country. She was just gallivanting around the world. My aunt was gone because she was back in China doing something, helping my mom. My dad left because he was like, F this. I'm not going to go and hold down the fort. He went and started his own restaurants that would also go on to fail and actually impact me financially. That's another story. And so at the time, I was 22 years old, running a Chinese restaurant with staff that has known me since I was a teen. I've been working in a restaurant since I was like 14. These people know me as a child, and now I'm their manager. I had to manage them. I was not getting paid a real salary. I was not really, when you work for family, you work for free. And I was very bitter, extremely bitter, because that is when I still had my dream of becoming a singer. I still am a very good singer. And I really was extremely talented. And I was winning all these contests. I was invited to go to China to sing, well, Taiwan, to go and sing on this televised show. And because I was at the restaurant, I was so scared. I could not leave my family behind. Like I literally, I could not fathom shutting down the restaurant. Like that to me would be crazy, right? I did not have that level of self confidence. And so other people were able to go. I had to stay here. I was so bitter. I was so bitter and angry because I'm like, how is it that other people don't have these burdens? I'm burdened with all of this family drama, this family responsibility. I'm only 22. I have to work 7 days a week in a dinky restaurant, it's a small Chinese restaurant, take people's crap and take the chef's crap, like take the staff's crap. I'm taking everybody's crap and I'm literally earning zero from it, earning zero money. All the money that I'm making is paying for the house because I'm not good at running a restaurant. Like it's my first time running a restaurant. No idea what I'm doing. And then I'm also renting out rooms in my family's house, trying to pay the mortgage. So all the money I'm earning, I'm paying my mom. I'm not keeping it. I'm not like using this money. So I'm like doing all this stuff to make money and I don't even get to keep any of it. I don't get any reward. Literally, it's charity work. So I did charity for like a year. And that year, I just felt so victimized. I was just like, oh, the world is against me. Life sucks, blah, blah, blah. I was so negative. And then I was just like, I'm sick of being so upset all the time. Like, I don't like being unhappy. I don't know about you. I don't enjoy being unhappy. Being unhappy is not a good place to be. Like, I don't like that feeling. And so I was like, I gotta nip this in the bud. I got to stop being so negative. The hell? Like, I'm too young to be this negative. So I was like, let me start reading books. Let me start reading like self-help books, self-development, personal development books. So that's when I started reading like this guy, Stephen Covey. He wrote this book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And I've shared this story a lot of times. This really was a life-changing moment. The first chapter, I believe it was. And I was like reading this chapter and it was talking about environmental impact. It was just like, you can't control your environment, right? Like you're born to the parents you're born to. You're born to the socioeconomic status you're born into. You have what you have. You can't control those things. That's just kind of like what happened. That's your birth lottery. That's what you were given. Now, what do you do? That is in your control. That is in your control. This is the same concept of Bill Gates saying something like, it's not your fault if you're born poor, but if you die poor, it's kind of your own issue. Like, same idea. It's like, yeah, you can't control what you were given, but you're still a human. You still have control. You still can do things. You still have a locus of control. That's the concept that other animals don't have. So that's the difference between the human species and pretty much any other type of animal. Other animals have no control over their destiny. They really don't. Like a deer cannot say, oh, I'm going to start eating steak today and I'm going to become a salesperson. Like deer cannot do that. It's like, I eat grass. That's what I was programmed to do. And like they have a very set place in society. Humans, we don't. Humans, we have this unbelievable amount of control over our life. And to almost degrade ourselves to think that, oh, that's it. You're only given your environment and that's your excuse for the rest of your life. That like, yeah, your mom was mean to you and your dad was a gambling addict and that's the end of your story and that's your whole identity. That can't be it, right? There's got to be more. So stop being the victim, start gaining control. This is something that I've consistently had to remind myself because it's so easy to fall into victim mindset. I think it's just a human nature, isn't it? And in 2016, when I retired from working, I felt like a victim because a lot of things that I saw in the workforce, a lot of things that I experienced in my toxic sales job from internally, not even from clients or candidates, from what I witnessed working in a very like, male dominated misogynistic environment, old school environment, really bothered me. A lot of my experiences really bothered me and I had PTSD. In 2016, I had PTSD from all the experiences that built up over the 5 years that I basically slaved away to earn financial freedom. Right. So a lot of things happened to me in those 5 years. And I felt a lot of victimhood, especially when Donald Trump, 2016, he was like everybody's talking point. And a lot of the nasty things that he was saying is exactly the type of activity and behavior I witnessed in the workforce. And it really triggered me, like the whole thing. And so for 2, 3 years, and for many, many years after, I felt a big sense of victimhood of what I experienced as a woman working in the workforce. And some days, if you catch me on the wrong day, I'll still feel that way. Some days I'm in a very big victim mindset. But the victim mindset is just such a really bad one. And the danger today too is social media is all about it. Like they monetize on this victim mindset. They prey on people's misery, people's negativity. They amplify it. They create a safe space to then fully indulge in it. And so now you have people who fully make their whole identity around negativity, essentially. And that doesn't help you. That doesn't help you get successful. That doesn't help you change your status quo, get better, become happier. It does not work. So that is another humongous issue, is this idea of being a victim and capitalizing on it. It's just not a great place to be. So that's another like major, major life lesson that I consistently have to remind myself to not fall prey to, because it's too easy to find people who are also going to complain, right? This misery needs company, this whole idea. But misery doesn't get you rich. Like being angry and upset and negative all the time is like the opposite of what made me rich, what made me successful. You know, being positive, being a light, being attractive, being charismatic, that's what helped me get successful. It was never complaining. Like complaining doesn't get you really anywhere unless you use it at your job to get a higher raise, in which case, good on you. All right. The third thing, this one's interesting. The third tip is dream big, but start small. So this is something I also experienced when I quit my job in 2016, January. I had all these crazy big dreams because I already was on my way to becoming a millionaire by 30. And it was a goal that I wrote in my diary when I was 22. And I was like, first million wasn't that even that hard. Like I got there, right? I went from negative to having $1 million in net worth. And so I'm like, let me dream big. Let me continue dreaming big. And that's where I went wrong because I just kept dreaming. When my first year as an entrepreneur, I just dreamt all the time. Just like, oh, my future is going to be so amazing. Like, oh, like this year, as long as I dream, I'm going to get there, because there's this toxic mentality around success called the law of attraction. I know you probably have heard it. Anyone who studies success, you will have heard it. And the idea of law of attraction is like, I'm going to just manifest it. I'm going to just put it out there and it's going to happen. No, it does not happen. It starts, what gets you successful is doing the work day in and day out, starting small. So that's why the third tip is dream big, but start super small, because the problem with dreaming too big is that you get distracted by the size of your dreams. Like your dream is so outlandish and so insane that you're actually not, you're going to be paralyzed. Like day one, it's like, how do I get from 0 to 1 million? It's too overwhelming. You need a game plan. You need execution. You need consistency. You need daily activity. That's how I got to $1 million by 30, was I actually worked. Like I worked really hard and consistently for many, many years. And I like stuck with the program. It didn't happen overnight. It took me 8 years to get my first million. So starting small is critical. And the reason why it took me 8 years is because I was spending 2 of those years just dreaming, wasting my own time. Probably could have got there a lot sooner, but I wasted my own time just dreaming of my beautiful future instead of doing the activity. Start small, do the activity, do the small things every day that gets you to the goal. Just dreaming is not enough. In fact, it could be very distracting. Number 4 and number 5 are kind of polar opposites of each other, but they're both important to say. Number 4 is do things you don't want to do. We already kind of talked about that. Be prepared to do what others don't want to do. That's talking about others. Now we're talking about you. There are certain things that you don't want to do, especially like going back to my previous point, you have this massive dream in your head. Wow, I want to go do this. But then when push comes to shove, you don't want to do it. right? So it's like, I want to lose weight. I want to look a certain way. But when push to cut comes to shove, I'm going to eat that breakfast sandwich. I'm going to eat that sausage, egg, and cheese with pepper jack cheese, extra like egg. I'm going to just like eat that every morning because that's what I like. So you're not going to get there, right? Because you're not doing things that you don't want to do. You're still holding on to habits that are not serving you, right? And this could be childhood comfort. For me, food, childhood comfort. Like these are things that make me happy. I love food. This is part of my identity. I love to eat. Like I've always eaten a lot of food. So I don't want to stop eating sausage, egg, and cheese sandwiches. I don't want to stop eating like humongous meals, right? And you pay for what you don't want to like you live with the consequences of that, right? So do things you don't want to do. There's a point where you kind of have to say, I got to stop doing all these things that are not like really helping me. And I got to kind of change my behaviors, right? At the same time, number 5, do things you want to do. So now I realized I want to make a lot of money. Before it was like, I just want to make a lot of money. I just want to be rich. Doesn't even matter what I do. Once you get to a certain level of like success or like financial stability, you should do things that you want to do. Otherwise, you will burn out, right? Like I'm doing the things I want to do because these things make me happy and keep me motivated. If I consider like plumbing pays a lot of money, electricians make a lot of money. I pay them all the time. I know they're freaking expensive. Does that mean I should go and become an electrician? No, because I have no passion for it. Not judging the role or the career. That's not the point. The point I'm saying is I have no interest in becoming an electrician. Like I'm not interested in that field, right? So like there's millions of ways to make money. Like I was in Albania this summer with my hubby and I was like, oh my God, you could just start an import export business selling rocks. Like you guys have the nicest rocks in this country. But do I want to sell rocks? Do I feel a deep calling to sell rocks? No, I don't care. So if you don't care about something, where are you going to get the motivation to deliver on it? Right? Like I know family members who are like, my family members, they've been in restaurant industry their whole life. They actually are passionate about food and selling food. I feel zero interest in that business. Zero. I worked there because my parents made me. I was like, I cannot go back to doing something I hate. Like, I just can't. Life is too short to work in a job that you hate. And the other day, I was talking to my hubby about this, and I was like, I think this is why so many people are miserable, so many rich people specifically, because they do work that they don't actually enjoy. So they're in a field just because the money's good, but they don't actually like it. I don't want that kind of life. I want to actually make money and enjoy the work I'm doing. Why not? Why not have both? Why work something that you don't like just for the money? It just sounds like a job. I'd rather not work, right? So do things you want to do. There is something important to be said about that. The last 2 tips. Number 6, keep growing, learning, and adapting. Of course, that's really key. So right now I'm in a learning, growing, adapting phase. I got a baby coming in. I'm trying to learn YouTube. I'm starting to read audiobooks again, learn audiobooks. Before I was just consuming like content, watching murder mysteries, true crime. That stuff doesn't get you anywhere. But I enjoy doing it, which is like whatever. But that's not great. Like it's not going to feed into my next step. So with the baby coming, it's like I got to really start buckling down to learn about babies. So I downloaded all these baby books to learn. And then simultaneously, I'm feeling the pressure, right? When your life is experiencing major changes, you actually start changing your behavior because now you have a sense of urgency that I did not have before. I did not have a sense of urgency. Now I do. It's like, oh my God, I got a baby coming. I better like start really maximizing how I'm spending my time because my time is not now going to become very, very, very valuable. So now I'm actually doing things that I haven't done in a while, which is learning, growing, and adapting. It's like now I'm going to learn new skills. Now I'm going to really invest in myself. It's really, really important to do that. And then the last thing is limit your time with people. So this is from my mom. My mom taught me from high school. She's like, a lot of these people that you think popularity is so important. This is where the East and West cultural differences are so stark. So I'm from China. My parents are from China. And my mom always said, she's like, popularity doesn't matter. Whereas in the West, Mean Girls, right? We grew up with Mean Girls. Popularity is everything. Like it doesn't matter what your grades are as long as you're popular. like popularity has more social value than grades do. Whereas in China, that was not the case. In China, it's like the good students are the popular students. It's totally different. And I went to school in China, so I know that whole dynamic. Like in China, people who get really good grades are looked upon favorably. In America, grades make you like unsexy, make you look like a dork even, right? So in America, we have a culture of anti-education. In China, we have a culture of pro-education. And so the issue is not understanding the value of these values. Because on my end, I grew up in the West. To me, I'm like, popularity is everything. Friendships, popularity, groups, Instagram, social life. This is really important. My mom is like, actually, it isn't though. If you want to be a millionaire and you want to set up businesses and you have these big dreams, the only people that are really important to you are your staff and your colleagues and your work business customers. Like, you have to be extremely careful how you're spending your free time, because if you're spending it with just random people, you will literally get nothing out of it. So it's like this delicate balance. On the one end, you want real friendships, you want real relationships. Social connection does matter. On the other end, you shouldn't be wasting your time with people who also aren't moving in the same direction you are. So through high school, through college, I've had experiences where I've had friends who we no longer see eye to eye. We don't have similar beliefs. We aren't on the same path. They want to complain. They're dropping out of the game, whatever. They're just like not on the same playing field. I don't want to surround myself with people like that. I'm very careful who I spend my time with. So I think having both of those mentalities has helped me curate a really strong, very close-knit friend group, but at the same time, like really be able to have lots of free time to focus on my business and my career aspirations, because I didn't waste my time. Like, I have some very close friends, but they're very, very few. Like, very, very few. I don't spend my time curating, 30 crew deep people. Like that's like an overwhelming amount of people. Like, I don't need that. And I get a lot of my socialization and, community stuff from like my customers. Like, my job is very, very extroverted. Like, I get a lot of fulfillment from all the constant socializing from my businesses. I don't need to go and hang out with people every night of the week. That to me sounds like misery, sounds awful. Like, I don't want to have a strict brunch, dinner, coffee schedule every weekend. That is overwhelming. I cannot imagine doing that. Sometimes I hang out with people and I'm like, I cannot believe the amount of socializing these people do. Like, it's exhausting. I probably don't do the same amount in a month that they do in one weekend, and that's a personal choice. So again, your life is in your control. You control how you want to live your life. For me, it was like I downgraded certain things that the majority of the general public would disagree with me on, as in, like, I'm happy living in a living room at age 28 with just a wardrobe as a wall and a curtain as a door. I did that for 2 years. Lived there for 4 years, actually. For 4 years, right? So, like, to me, it was like, it's worth it. Like, it's better than living in a van. I don't want to live in a van, but I'm living for free in Brooklyn, right? Rent hacking. So you just have to pick how you want to live your life. Like, some of the decisions I've made have been so outlandish and wild, but it's contributed to getting me what I wanted because those were important to me. Same thing for you. Like, you're going to have your own non-negotiables, your own desires. But I hope some of these 7 tips are relevant to your life stage right now, to some of the shared experiences that we as humans walking this earth will have. And just live intentionally. I think that's the last thing that I'm trying to remind myself is, like, let's try to make the most of the time we have, because time does fly. It does fly so quickly. And the more you think about it, the less time we have. Every day just flies. And I feel that more and more as I age. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. I hope you take the MPC course if you're trying to learn how to do sales and recruiting. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always hit me up, dz@dandanzhu.com.